You know that feeling when you've been sitting on the couch for a little too long and you stand up really fast?
Oh, yeah, and suddenly the whole room just spins.
Right. Your vision gets like a little dark around the edges. You feel dizzy for just a second, and then you're fine.
It's super disorienting, but yeah, it passes quickly.
Exactly. Or
Right.
think about the last time you were sick with like a 102-degree fever. You're radiating heat, but you're huddled under 3 blankets, just violently shivering because you feel freezing.
Right, the classic fever chills.
Yeah. And the thing is, you stand up, the room spins, you feel dizzy. That's not a glitch in the system. That's actually the real-time physical lag of your body's biological software frantically trying to, reboot your blood pressure.
Which is wild to think about.
It really is. So today we are taking a deep dive into the body's control systems. We've gathered this huge stack of anatomy and physiology sources, and our mission today is to decode how your biology senses change and responds to it.
Either to ruthlessly maintain stability, or in some crazy cases, dramatically amplify a change to literally save your life.
Exactly. And whether you're prepping for a biology exam or you're just, insanely curious about what's keeping you alive right this second, this deep dive is going to deliver some serious aha moments.
I love talking about this stuff because honestly, it completely shifts how you view human health. You realize the body isn't just this static vessel.
Right.
It's a highly dynamic, self-correcting machine that's running like millions of concurrent calculations just to keep you upright.
Yeah, and you have such a knack for connecting those tiny microscopic dots to the big picture, which is why I'm so glad you're here for this one. But before we look at the extreme ways the body reacts to emergencies, okay, let's unpack this. What exactly is a feedback loop?
Well, if we're looking at the body as an engineered system, we have to move past the idea of it just being a container of organs, right?
Sure.
A feedback loop, in this context, it's closer to like an algorithmic trading bot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it senses a variable, runs a calculation against a target, and then executes a trade to correct the balance.
Yeah.
And the sources break this down into 3 working parts.
Right, the receptor, the control center, and the effector.
Exactly. The receptor is the sensor. The control center is usually the brain, like the hypothalamus acting as the processor, and the effector is the muscle or gland executing the physiological trade.
So drawing from the sources here, it's basically like a thermostat in your house.
That is the perfect analogy, yeah.
Right, like if the thermostat is set to 68 degrees, the thermometer is the receptor detecting the cold. The thermostat itself is the control center making the decision, and then the heater is the effector that actually kicks on to warm the place up.
Exactly. And arriving at that realization that we run on these loops, that required a massive conceptual leap in medicine.
Because before that, they just thought we were, passive?
Pretty much. Up until the 19th century, medicine often viewed the body through the lens of vague humors, or just as this blunt machine that reacted to whatever hit it. But Claude Bernard changed that in 1865.
Right, with the milieu interieur.
Yes. The idea of the internal environment. He proposed that living organisms actively maintain a stable internal environment regardless of the external chaos.
Which makes sense because, if your internal temperature dropped every time it snowed outside, you'd be entirely at the mercy of the weather.
Right, you'd have no true autonomy as an organism.
But the twist here from the source material that absolutely blew my mind is that the formal math for this, the vocabulary of sensors and feedback loops, it wasn't actually invented by biologists.
No, it wasn't. Biology hit a wall trying to describe these systems, so they had to borrow the language from control engineering.
Like literal steam engines.
Literally steam engines.
Uh-huh.
James Watt invented this centrifugal governor in 1788 for steam engines. It was a mechanical device that automatically sped up or slowed down the fuel input based on how fast the engine was already spinning.
So it regulated itself.
Exactly. And then later, in 1948, the mathematician Norbert Wiener published a book on cybernetics that formally connected engineering control theory to biological regulation.
That's the moment they realized a human nervous system and a mechanical thermostat are running on the exact same math, which is just incredible. And that brings us to the systems that spend all their time fighting against change.
Right. The negative feedback loops.
And I should clarify for the listener, because I definitely misunderstood this at first. Negative here doesn't mean bad. It's not a negative performance review.
No, not at all. It's a mathematical term. It means subtraction. The effector's response opposes or subtracts from the initial stimulus. It negates the drift to push the body back to its baseline.
Set point.
Exactly, the set point. And here's a crazy stat. Roughly 80 to 90% of the feedback systems in the human body operate this way.
Wow, 80 to 90%. Why so many?
Because vital metrics like your blood pH, your calcium levels, your core body temperature, they require an incredibly narrow survivable range.
Right. I mean, if your body temperature goes up just a few degrees, things start breaking down.
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at thermoregulation. Your set point is around 37 degrees Celsius. If you're cold, the hypothalamus triggers your skeletal muscles to shiver, which generates heat, and your skin vessels to constrict to save heat.
And then if you're hot, it's the opposite. The sweat glands activate and the vessels dilate to release the heat.
Exactly. It's constantly pushing back against the environment.
Let's use an everyday example for this, like blood glucose. So I eat a massive plate of pasta, right?
Sounds delicious.
Oh, it is.
Oh.
But my blood glucose immediately spikes. So reading through the sources, my pancreas detects that spike, and the beta cells secrete insulin.
Right.
And that insulin unlocks my muscle and fat cells to basically pull the glucose out of the blood, and the liver stores the rest. But like the system has to have a counterbalance, right? Otherwise, the insulin would just crash my blood sugar to zero.
And that is where the alpha cells come in. Hours later, when your blood sugar starts dropping because you haven't eaten in a while, the loop flips. Those alpha cells in the pancreas secrete glucagon. It's a hormone that tells your liver to break down all that stored glycogen and release the glucose back into your bloodstream.
So the insulin is the downward pressure, and the glucagon is the upward pressure.
Precisely. They're what we call antagonistic hormones. They pull the exact same variable in opposite directions to keep it suspended right in that perfect middle range.
Seeing those mechanics laid out like that, it really makes chronic disease make so much more sense. Like, type 1 diabetes isn't just this generic, vague illness. It is a literal mechanical failure of that exact loop.
It really is. The immune system destroys the beta cells, so the downward pressure of insulin is just gone.
The algorithm is broken.
Yeah, glucose is no longer defended, and without external intervention, the system fails.
So what does this all mean for that dizzy feeling we talked about at the very beginning? Because that's another mechanical quirk, right?
Yes. When you get orthostatic hypotension, that dizzy feeling when standing, it's a brilliant example of the baroreceptor reflex.
The stretch-sensitive nerves.
Right. You have these baroreceptors in your neck and near your heart, constantly monitoring blood pressure. When you're lying flat, blood pressure is pretty even.
Because gravity isn't pulling it all down.
Exactly. So when you stand up really fast, gravity yanks a huge volume of blood down into your legs. Your upper body and your brain experience an instantaneous drop in pressure.
And the dizziness happens because, and this was such a real-time aha moment for me in the sources, these loops aren't instantaneous.
Right. There's a physical lag.
The receptors have to fire a signal to the brainstem processes it, sends chemical signals down neural pathways to tell your heart to beat faster and your blood vessels to constrict.
All of that takes a second or two. The neurotransmitter release, the physical contraction of smooth muscle, it's not digital.
So that dizziness is just the latency period. You're literally feeling the processing speed of your own biology booting up the negative feedback loop.
It is wild to think about it that way. You are experiencing your own lag time.
Okay, so if negative feedback is this super robust braking system keeping us anchored, here's where it gets really interesting. What happens when the body intentionally stomps on the gas pedal?
Ah, positive feedback loops. This is where the response actually amplifies the initial change, pushing the variable further and further away from the baseline.
Which sounds completely dangerous.
What's fascinating here is that they are inherently unstable by design. Because they escalate, they absolutely require a definitive external event to shut them off.
Otherwise, they just spiral forever.
Exactly. Which is why the body uses them so rarely.
But if they're so dangerous, why would evolution even bother? Like, why risk a system that needs an external kill switch?
Because sometimes stability is the exact opposite of what you need. Positive feedback is reserved for things that have to happen with explosive speed and a clear endpoint.
Like childbirth, right? That's the classic textbook example.
Yes, the Ferguson reflex. As the baby presses against the cervix, stretch receptors tell the hypothalamus to release oxytocin.
Which causes a contraction.
Right, which pushes the baby harder against the cervix, stretching it more, releasing more oxytocin, causing a stronger contraction.
Until the external shutoff event happens, the baby is delivered.
Exactly. Another mind-blowing one is the action potential in your neurons. Every single thought you are having right now relies on positive feedback.
Wait, really? Every thought?
Every single one. When a nerve cell fires, a few sodium channels open up, letting positively charged sodium into the cell. That changes the voltage, which is the exact trigger to open even more sodium channels.
So sodium rushing in guarantees more sodium rushing in.
Right. It creates this self-reinforcing wave of electricity that travels down the nerve instantly. If that was negative feedback, your thoughts would be constantly suppressed and slowed down.
Wow. And the sources mentioned blood clotting works this way too, right?
Yeah, platelets attach to a tear in a vessel. They release chemicals to attract more platelets, which attract more platelets until the wound is sealed.
But wait, what happens if the loop doesn't get that external shutoff? Like when good loops go bad?
It's catastrophic. That's when you get a biological runaway train. Look at septic shock.
Oh, man.
Yeah. A severe infection triggers the immune system to release these inflammatory proteins called cytokines.
A cytokine storm.
Exactly. In a septic cascade, those cytokines trigger the release of even more cytokines. The inflammation causes your blood vessels to just completely open up, so blood pressure plummets.
And the organs stop getting oxygen.
Which causes more tissue damage, which triggers more inflammation. It's a lethal spiral.
Heat stroke is the same thing, right? Sources talked about how that's a positive loop failure.
Yeah, if your core temperature gets pushed past, say, 104 degrees, your normal negative feedback like sweating starts to fail.
The brakes give out.
Exactly. And the metabolic chemical reactions in your cells actually speed up when they get hotter, so they generate more internal heat.
Oh no, so the heat is creating more heat.
Spiraling right toward organ failure. The body intentionally shatters its baseline to achieve a goal, but if it misses the off switch, the very mechanism meant to help you just destroys you.
Okay, so that leads me to another question. If negative feedback is so flawlessly designed to keep us at that 98.6-degree set point, why do we shiver and feel freezing when we have a fever?
This is such a great misconception to clear up. It introduces a mechanism called rheostasis.
Homeostasis.
Right. We used to think the set point was just a permanent fixed number for your whole life, but it's actually mutable.
So the target itself can move.
Yes. During an infection, your immune cells release chemicals called pyrogens, like prostaglandins. They go up into the brain and act on the hypothalamus. They deliberately hack the system and raise the set point from 98.6 to, let's say, 102 degrees.
Wow. So the brain looks at your perfectly normal 98.6-degree blood, and based on the new target, it thinks you have severe hypothermia.
Exactly. It deploys standard negative feedback to fix the error.
So the shivering is just the body's heater kicking on to reach the new, higher baseline.
Right. You don't feel freezing because the heating system is broken. You feel freezing because it's working perfectly to reach 102.
And then when the fever breaks,
the pyrogens clear out, the hypothalamus drops the target back to 98.6, and suddenly your 102-degree body realizes it is overheating.
which is why you immediately start sweating buckets to bring it back down.
Exactly.
That is fascinating. And this whole idea of a shifting baseline, it's actually at the center of a huge debate right now, isn't it? Homeostasis versus allostasis?
It's a major controversy in physiology. So, homeostasis frames the body as a reactive system. It waits for a disturbance, detects the error, and then fixes it.
Like the thermostat waiting for the room to get cold.
Right. But modern researchers, like Peter Sterling and Bruce McEwen, they argue for allostasis, which translates to stability through change.
Okay.
They say the brain is actually a prediction engine. It anticipates demands and shifts the baselines in advance. Like if you're standing at the starting line of a race, your heart rate and cortisol rise before you run a single step.
It's not waiting for an oxygen deficit.
Exactly. It's proactively altering the loops.
Huh. But I've got to push back a little here looking at the literature. Isn't allostasis really just homeostasis that bought a calendar?
A lot of traditional physiologists say exactly that.
Like, why does it need a fancy new name if it's the exact same physiological levers, just pulled a little earlier?
Well, the defenders of allostasis point to something crucial: allostatic load.
What's that?
It's the cumulative wear and tear on your body from constantly predicting and managing stress. If your brain is constantly anticipating a threat-like chronic job stress, it keeps those predictive loops permanently revved up.
So you're pumping out cortisol for a tiger that's never actually going to attack you.
Right. And over years, that damages your cardiovascular system. Allostatic load gives us a biological framework for how chronic psychological stress causes physical disease, which simple reactive homeostasis doesn't capture well.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this debate over moving targets is the exact epicenter of the obesity debate right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
Is body weight a rigid set point? The body violently defends. Because if it is, when someone loses weight, Their negative feedback loops register that as a starvation error.
So the body fights back by lowering metabolism and spiking hunger hormones,
Exactly. But the other side argues for a settling point.
which is more passive.
Right. In that model, weight is just a passive settling point based on your environment, habits, and diet. If the environment changes, the settling point shifts without the body going to war over it.
And this isn't just an academic debate. Knowing if a baseline is fixed or passive dictates how we treat millions of people. I mean, hacking these broken loops is basically the foundation of modern medicine.
Oh, absolutely. If you have chronic high blood pressure, you might take beta blockers. Those intervene directly in the baroreceptor systems to forcibly lower the heart rate.
Or like the new GLP-1 agonists for weight loss and diabetes.
Yes, those are essentially synthetic software patches. They replace the broken negative feedback to restore the downward pressure on appetite and blood sugar.
And in an ICU setting, doctors are basically just fighting runaway loops.
That's the entire strategy for critical care. When they see septic shock, they know the internal brakes are gone. The body cannot save itself.
So they have to be the external shutoff.
Exactly. They use ice baths, IV fluids, and vasopressors to forcibly break the loop from the outside because the body is locked in a fatal escalation.
This raises an important question, though. Because once you learn the vocabulary of these feedback loops, you start seeing them everywhere outside of the body.
Oh, they map perfectly to the outside world.
Like a car's cruise control is just negative feedback.
Yeah.
And economic bubbles, where rising asset prices make more people buy, driving prices higher, that's a psychological positive feedback loop.
Lacking an off switch until the whole market crashes.
Exactly. Or environmental tipping points. The ice caps melt, reflecting less sunlight, so the oceans get hotter, melting more ice. It's the same math.
It really is.
It's just wild. We started with Claude Bernard in the 1800s, moved to steam engines, and traced it all the way down to the pancreatic cells regulating the listener's blood sugar right now.
And those runaway positive loops letting you form thoughts and heal wounds.
It's brilliant engineering. But it leaves me with one final kind of provocative thought.
Let's hear it.
If 80 to 90% of our internal biology is violently dedicated to resisting change and defending an old baseline, how much of our everyday human struggle, like forming a new habit, adapting to a new city, or even trying to survive in space, is just a battle against our own beautifully engineered, stubborn negative feedback loops?
That is a fascinating way to look at it.
Something to mull over the next time you stand up a little too fast. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.